Have you been wondering what the pros and cons to living in a new build offers? Well, in today's video, I'm going over exactly that. Before we get started, this is Colorado Living. My name's Nicole Baker. I help people just like you relocate here. My number is popping up on the screen so you guys can reach out, text, call, email, night, day, whatever works best for you. I love helping you guys relocate, but in today's video, we're going over exactly why a new build might be a good choice or maybe not a good choice, so stick along for this video. All right, guys, we're gonna get right into today's video with the very first pro on why new builds might be a good option for you. The first one is you don't have to pay yet, typically, right? So there's always a million different variables. That's kind of my saying. Take a shot for how many times I say variables in this video. But basically, you know, in a typical new build where it takes about 8 to 10 months, you don't have to pay until you're actually at the closing table, which I don't think a lot of people think about, which is amazing because it gives you a little bit more time to save up. Not necessarily do you not already have your down payment, because you do need your down payment to qualify, but a lot of us want our down payment and more in order to feel secure in our purchase. And not just our down payment, but we have down payment, we have closing costs, any inspections that you want to get. You can get inspections on a new home, so just keep that in mind. But those things cost money, and then we have to furnish a new home, and not always does our furniture necessarily match what we have right now, so we got to keep in mind that. Got to keep in mind all the little nuances that come with purchasing a home in general. So over that 8 to 10 month period, you have time to save up a little bit more on top of your down payment, and or even put more down payment down or something along those lines, potentially buy down your rate if that's something that's important to you. Talking about buying down your rate, we're gonna mention that in the next section. All right, I told you guys I was gonna mention interest rates. Interest rates are very high right now. We all know that. That's not a secret that I just brought to your attention, hopefully. With interest rates being high and you thinking about a potential new build, there could be, I guess this is a pro or a con because of how many different variables. I'm trying to get you drunk in this video. Depending on what type of variables there are in the situation that you're in, the interest rate typically on a new home can only be locked in 90 days prior to closing, sometimes even less than that. It just depends on the builders themselves. So when I say locking in an interest rate, right now interest rates are in the 7s. Depending on when you're watching this video, I'm just saying on October 25th, 2022, it is around 7%. So hopefully by the time you're watching this video, maybe it's lowered a little bit. There's some pros and cons to a high interest rate. We're not gonna get too much into that video. If you guys wanna watch more about the housing market and why interest rates might not be as big of a deal as you think they are, go ahead and check out my Denver market video. I'm gonna put a little card up here in the corner so you guys can click on it once you're done watching this video, or go to my channel to see more information on all the relocation stuff possible surrounding Denver, Colorado, and the surrounding suburbs and things like that. But point being is interest rates are high right now, and in the 8 to 10 months that it takes for your new home to be built, the interest rates could be very, very different. I have some clients who are going through that right now in a con kind of aspect. So when they purchased their homes, I mean, some of them, it was a year and a half ago, right? A year and a half ago, interest rates were around 3%. So they have unfortunately had to, and this is something that they knew going in, because I always let my clients know all the variables that are going to be in place whenever looking at new homes, because a lot of the times people go into these new homes without representation, aka your realtor, and the new build rep is not going to tell you all this information. So I always prepare my clients so they knew that this was a potential coming in. Of course, it's not like preferred still, but at least they were prepared mentally for it. When they purchased the home or went under contract, we'll say, on the new build originally 8 months to a year ago, the interest rates were around 3%. And now, unfortunately, they're gonna be in the 7%. And luckily for them, they have a good agent behind them, and we were able to negotiate their rates down, even though some of the builders are doing, or the, I guess, market average is around 7%. I was able to get my client a 5.9%, and things like that, things that, you know, if you went into a new home on your own, you might not know to ask because you just don't know what you don't know. So keep that in mind. You always want to have an agent there to represent you. The new build rep is not an agent that's going to represent you. They are representing the seller, so they're not going to give you all the tips and tricks. But anyways, we were able to negotiate that rate down, but hopefully now on the pro portion for you guys, if you were to look at a new home and say it was going to be a 9 to 10 month span, right now they're actually saying that interest rates are planning to go back down in that span. So totally up to you. Something to keep in mind, that might be a pro, and why a new build actually might make sense, because you can lock in the incentives that new builds, and we'll talk about those next, but lock in the incentives that those builders are offering now in a, we'll say, a balanced market, at least in Denver. Just depends on where you're located, but in Denver, a balanced market, we may be able to lock in some of those incentives that the builders are offering, and then 9 to 10 months later, when interest rates go back down and it's a bunch of craziness again, you still have those incentives, and then you can also lock in that lower rate. So the incentives right now for builders are absolutely insane, and I think it's because builders are really down right now because they're pretty much having to beg people to purchase their homes because of some of the big cons that I'm going to mention later on in this video, so stick around for those. But it's really hurting a lot of builders right now, especially with the interest rates, and especially knowing that you can't lock in your interest rates. So it's kind of halting a lot of people that may be weary about this market. In my opinion, the incentives are like the best part of a new build. Pretty much that's why I take so many of my clients to new homes, especially my first time home buyers. New builds are an amazing opportunity. There are a crazy amount of incentives, whether that be the builder buying down your rate, which is awesome. That's what I talked about in the last section, where I had that buyer get their interest rate bought down to the 5.9%, which is really unheard of right now in this market, with it being 7% interest rates. And then also I've had people get their landscaping for free. In Colorado, not everything is included in the home, in the new build process in general. So fencing is something that you have to keep in mind. That could be a pretty big cost. Outside landscaping, whether majority of the time it's just the backyard, but you do have to keep in mind some of these higher end communities do not include the front exterior landscaping at all either. So that's another huge, depending on how crazy you're gonna get with the landscaping. I mean, you could spend easily $60,000 in your backyard. So keep that in mind. If you're thinking about something fancy, obviously it can be cheaper than that. But those are things that you have to keep in mind with new builds that could be costly. But going back to the incentives, is they can pay for those things for you. Sometimes they're offering washer, dryer, fridge. Sometimes they're offering to pay all of your closing costs, depending on location and price point and things like that. Again, a million different variables, but those can seriously add up, and they will pay for all of that to get done. They'll pay for your basement, they'll pay for blinds, they'll pay for fridge, washer, dryer, they'll pay, oh yeah, back to what I totally blanked when I said variables, and I was thinking of you guys taking shots. Closing costs could be around $10,000 even at the high end. So that is a lot of money, especially for my first time home buyers who don't have that kind of cash. New builds are offering insane incentives right now. So think about a new build next time you're thinking about, you know, where am I going to move? And then would I want to buy a new home, or would I want to buy an older resale home? Next thing saying a definite con for new builds, and I think that this is what's truly hurting a lot of builders right now, is the time that you have to wait. With this market how it is, it's so extremely volatile. We do not know what's going on basically at any time. I mean, we can only do our best to really use like our context clues and figure out what's going to help you guys win in this marketplace, whether it be winning like actually getting a home and or winning like with your budget and things like that. But point being is, when you have to wait so long, the market is extremely volatile and we have no idea what's going to happen in that timeline. It could be super, super tough and nerve-wracking to wait a 8 to 10 month period of time, sometimes longer and sometimes shorter. So just think about that when you're thinking about a new build. Also, not every single time you have to wait. A lot of the times new builds will have things called spec homes or inventory homes, where they have already picked out all the specifics, aka specs, of the property. So things like that will only take, I mean, they could be ready within, 30 days, cash buyers 2 weeks. I mean, it is seriously like really cool that they even offer that stuff. And right now, with the market being a little bit slower than it was, there's a lot more opportunity and a lot more spec homes. So you could potentially move in within 30 days. But I think whenever a lot of people think new builds, most of the time they are thinking they want to pick out every single detail, and you have to buy like ground up for that, like buy the dirt kind of thing. You're not actually buying the dirt, but you get what I'm saying. You're starting from dirt and you're building up and you're picking all the things that you want to pick. With that comes time, and with time comes uncertainty. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about a new build. Another big con for builders is if you are buying a new build in a location where there's pretty much nothing around you, you have no idea what's going to be built in that in that area, I guess, over time. Like there could be an airport going in right next to you and things like that. Of course, there's zoning, but that zoning could always change. And then also it doesn't actually specify what is going to be in there. A lot of things are zoned, like different companies are zoned for the same thing that you would think. You just don't know, is my point. And I think that's a little scary thinking about new builds. I've had a lot of people in the past come to me thinking, oh, I didn't know there was gonna be a Fry's behind, or King Soopers in Colorado. I always still call it Fry's because that's what it's called in Arizona, but King Soopers right behind my house. I didn't know that. Now there's a bunch of traffic. Now there's this, now there's that. Things like that. You want to make sure that you're looking into those and being prepared for the consequences if you don't look into them, and or, you just never know. So it could be zoned for one thing and then it changes a few years later and an airport's built in your backyard, is my point, and you don't want that. So just think about that when it comes to new builds and a newer area. Not always is a brand new home actually in an undeveloped area. Like I'm in a new build right now and that's why it's empty back here, but this is in a very, very developed area. You wouldn't have to worry about something necessarily coming into your backyard because there's pretty much houses everywhere that you are, but that's something to keep in mind when thinking about purchasing a new home in a newer community. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button down below. If you want more content just like this one, go ahead and subscribe. I make videos every Monday and Wednesday. But until next time, I'm a licensed realtor here in this beautiful state, and I help people just like you relocate. So my number's popping up as well as my email. I love talking to you guys. But until next time, I'll see you later. Bye.